We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
This is Inside Scoop Virginia, and I'm Bettina Lawton, your host. And I have with me Muslim Lakhani. He is a Pakistani entrepreneur and philanthropist. And so we are very excited to have him because we hear a lot about institutional efforts to deal with Islamophobia. And institutional efforts at cross-cultural interfaith activities. But Muslim has actually taken it upon himself to do this. He has been an entrepreneur and a philanthropist with over 35 years of experience in the private sector in the Middle East, Europe, Southeast Asia, the United States. In his youth, he was an international polo player. I've never met one of those before. And he has spent 2 decades investing his own money in various charitable projects all over the world. He was honored last month by the U.S. House of Representatives for his philanthropic efforts. And earlier this year, he was also recognized by the Virginia General Assembly. And this recognition was brought about by both Republicans and Democrats. So it's a bipartisan effort. I understand he is the first South Asian Pakistani American to be so honored. So we're very pleased about that. In 2016, Muslim was awarded the Interfaith Bridge Builders Award by the Interfaith Conference of Metropolitan Washington as a leader in promoting greater international, interfaith, cross-cultural dialogue, reconciliation, and mutual understanding. And this is his maiden voyage on Inside Scoop. So welcome, Muslim. I'm glad you could be here tonight.
Well, thank you for having me.
Well, I want to talk about, you grew up in Pakistan.
Yes.
In Karachi. So what was that like? This was the 1950s, and most of us only know Pakistan from 9/11. So what was it actually like when you were growing up? What was your childhood?
When I was growing up in Pakistan, in Karachi, it was very different than the Pakistan that is there now.
Okay.
It doesn't relate to anything that the kind of Pakistan that I grew up in. Mm-hmm. It was very secular. It was very tolerant. I went to a school with Jewish kids, Hindu kids, with everybody. We had a great time. Nobody talked about, oh, you're this or you're that. You talked more about, human beings and going to each other's homes and celebrating each other's days that are, like Christmas or the Hanukkah or, whatever it may be. The Hindu, I had lots of friends who also were celebrating Holi or whatever they were celebrating. As young kids, you wanted to celebrate all the time.
Yeah, any reason.
That was what it was.
So
But it was a Pakistan of what the founder of Pakistan said. It is not the business of the state to ask you to go or not to go or to worship. The business of the state is to give you protection. You're free to go to your mosque, to your church, to your synagogue, to the mandirs or temples or wherever.
It's very different than today.
Oh my God, it's totally different. The world is different today.
Right.
I mean, when I went to school, there were no calculators.
True.
I mean, there were no seat belts in the cars.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. We were living large back then, and we survived.
We survived it.
We certainly did. I do want to point out for the people who are watching us is that you'll see rolling behind us periodically various pictures of Muslim, both in his youth and in getting various rewards and doing the things that we're going to be talking about. So that's what you're seeing in the background. You ended up, I mentioned that you were a polo player. You traveled all around the world. You went back to Pakistan and lived there for a long time, becoming an entrepreneur. You're known a lot for charitable work in the United States, but when did all of the interest in your charity start? Where did that come from?
Well, first let me just tell you that my father died when I was 2 or less. and then my sister was born when my father died, and my mother was under stress. So she was born, and then, you know, all I remember, the little remembrances, who the hell took my cot? You know, it was more like that, but she was gone. And then I was, you know, we were 11 or 12 of us, and my mother was grieving, so my elder sisters, my grandmother was there. She kind of was the matriarch and, you know, helping us with many things that young kids need. And then she passed away in front of me when I was about 8. So here I was, by the age of 8, I had lost 3.
Wow.
I understood that by the age of 6 that I didn't have a father, 5 or 6. And 8, you know, in front of me, they took away my grandmother, 8, 9, I remember. It's very daunting on a young person, young child. And then, you know, while I was still just entering my teens, my brother died in an air crash. He was 29 or 30, maybe younger, I don't remember. But, you know, all I remember then is that by the time I got into my teens, I knew one thing, that you're born and you're going to die. And while you're living, life, it's a miracle. Life is a miracle. It's gifted to you. And you must enjoy it. And while you enjoy it, you try to find the middle path that if you can, like my father did, and like my mother taught me, actually, that, you know, if we were eating food and people came to the door all the time asking for food or something, and she would tell me, take your food. In fact, she would tell the staff that, take half the food that's on the table. And she would tell me to take the entire big thing over to them. And I remember one day, there was this lady and with a whole bunch of kids. So I sat down and I said, it was very impressionable. It was, so I brought up kind of a cloth.
It's obviously very emotional, even all these years later.
Anyway, you know, so this became part of my ethos. I could easily have been there.
Yeah. It's when you get that perspective that says, that could be me.
Yeah.
You know, if circumstances were different, it could have been me. That gives you a totally different perspective. Now, some people never get that. They are just so about what they have. But you obviously really sort of absorbed the lessons of your childhood about being kind to other people and the whole sort of charitable approach. It seems like you really got that early on.
Yeah, I think it happened at a very, I mean, I was very fortunate. I'm very thankful to the Lord, thankful to God that it happened to me at a very young age. And then by the time I was 17 and a half, I left for Italy. I was supposed to be there for an 8 to 9 month course, and I stayed on, and a year and a half later, I went from Italy to England and Europe, and I was a polo player, so I, you know, could play, but and I don't mean to be, you know, here I'm choking up talking about the story, but I also played with the royalty and all that. But that didn't affect me because my reality was coming in and telling me I enjoyed the game. I enjoyed sports, so that was part of it. And that also is, again, you know, all these things that happen to you for a cause, for a purpose. I mean, I remember that when I was young, you know, I was 11th or 12th child. Nobody knew I was around. So I was kind of,
you can get away with
anything. What do I do? And my sisters, you know, all of them have passed away. I've lost 18 members of my family. I'm the only one now, and my children. And So the perspective, but the beauty is that, God is merciful, God is kind. He gives you strength that you don't go back to think about all the losses. Because the losses that you've had, whether they are emotional, material, they become the platform for your growth. So if you are really, that's when you start to develop things like, there are two things in my body. One is the spirit. That spirit is as young today as the day I was born.
Okay.
And it'll be young till the day I die. The body gets old, and the person moves on. But the fact is that the spirit, now what does the spirit need to really come up, is that if you find the middle path, and you're mindful of people, my argument has always been that, look, what you don't have any control on, don't blame the other person. What do we have? We didn't have a choice where we were born. I could have been born in a Christian or a Hindu home or a Jewish home, or the other person could have been born in my home.
Right.
What choice did I have where I was born? But I'm very comfortable being a Muslim. I respect it. So I respect the other person.
Okay.
I must respect them. If I respect myself, it's incumbent on me to respect the other. So that became very much slowly a very strong part of my ethos going forward. Not judging people, not passing judgment, not looking at anybody who's rich or who's poor, who's famous or who's not. One of the things I think you may have read it because you've been through all my. I remember last year I was speaking at one of the conferences, and when I was a polo player, I was not bad, like everything to be an international polo player, but I didn't look for the limelight. I was looking for the divine light.
Ooh, that's a great place for us to stop because we have to go to break. I can hear the music. We'll pick it up right there when we come back with Muslim Lakhani, and we're going to talk about the divine light, playing polo, and we're going to talk about the charitable endeavors that he has been involved in for the last couple of decades and the work that he's doing in our local area. Stay with us.
We're back to the Inside Scoop. Here again, your host.
Welcome back to the Inside Scoop. I'm Bettina Lawton here with Muslim Lakhani, and we are talking about his life, and we're going to talk about, in this segment in particular, the work that he's been doing in the United States and around the world to help other people who are less fortunate than he is. So, Muslim, when we went to the break, you were talking about being a polo player, and you could go for the limelight or the divine light. So, what did you choose?
Well, it was a very simple choice. I went for the divine light.
Okay.
It was a balm for my soul.
Okay. That's spirit, you said.
And it was a compass for my life. Today, when I think back, when I chose that, I didn't know at that time why I was choosing it, but now I see that it was comforting to me. I felt comfortable. I didn't need, like for instance, we have the feeding program going on here with the Salvation Army, but the feeding program going on in the country of my birth, Pakistan, in Islamabad, in 5 places. Nobody for 15 years, even now, I don't think anybody knows that I'm behind it. And one of the things is that, in countries like that, usually people say, why are you doing it? Do you have an agenda? Do you want to get into politics? So I was like, oh gosh, I just do it quietly.
Right.
I'm doing it for my own self. It makes you feel good.
Right. Well, and you are the major sponsor, if not the sole sponsor, of the Salvation Army Great Project, which feeds like 200 people every single day in D.C.
Yeah, in the D.C. area, and I'm really grateful for that.
Well, why are you? I mean, that's a Christian. I mean, everybody knows that's a Christian charity. Why are you so involved with that as a Muslim?
Well, when I was in England, I knew Salvation Army then. It's almost 200 years old. And they're the best in the business of feeding people. I mean, I wanted to go to the people who were the best. But I remember walking past them when I was living in D.C. and saying, you know, if I walk and said, hi, my name is Muslim.
How did you get that name, by the way? That's like that seems like kind of a right out there name.
You know, what you see is what you get.
Right.
You know, my father gave me that name, and he wasn't around that I could ask him. So I kept it. And, you know, when they say, what's in a name? I'll tell you one thing. There's a lot in a name.
Yeah.
You know, every time I've said my name is Muslim, it's been like, okay, you know, now what?
Right. Okay, that's your religion. What's your name?
Yeah. I mean, that's also happened. I've landed in London from Italy, and it was one of those flights where there were, you know, cheap ticket, student, a lot of gypsies, Hungarians, and everybody on that flight from Milan into London. And I filled it out and wrote my name, and, you know, the British are very, very polite. And the lady looked at me and looked at it again and said, speak English? I said, yeah, a little bit. She said, not your religion, your name. I said, madam, I'm very sorry, but my father thought I was going to be so dumb that he gave me 2 for 1. So there you have it.
So you wouldn't forget.
No, I wouldn't forget. But you know, the other thing is that you've got to learn to laugh at yourself. I always introduce myself by saying my name is Muslim Mistake Lakhani, because mistakes we all make. Okay. And when we admit it, we become better as a human being. And you know, admitting it and then not forgetting the mistake, but moving on. You know, being positive about the mistake that you made. Right. So every day when I go to sleep, I think of, oh my God, how many mistakes did I make today? Can I make less tomorrow?
Right.
You know,
or at least make different ones tomorrow.
But the most important lesson I've learned in my life was, you know, you are going to make a mistake. The others are going to make a mistake. Don't hold it against them. Don't hold grudges. Don't bear any hatred towards anybody. I mean, you know, that's the way I live my life. I live my life in peace, though I've been, you know, harassed many times. Not here, but in my own country, you know, by the Taliban. And if it wasn't for my ex-wife, who was very brave, who just had the presence to drive through. I was told by the intelligence later on that if they got me, they would have slit my throat.
Wow.
I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you.
Absolutely.
But you know, that's the lesson, and that's what I want to tell the people listening today, the Muslims, especially the younger ones, that look, this life that we have today, it's a journey called life. It's a very small journey. You know, live it with all the passion that you have. And passion brings out compassion. And if you have passion, you will turn around and tell that ISIS guy or that Taliban or whatever, listen, you can do what the hell you want. I'm not going to live like a rat. I'm going to live like a lion, because when my time is up, I'm going to be dead.
Right.
But it ain't going to be because I'm afraid of you. That is for sure. That is a lesson I've tried to give to the young people wherever I've spoken, and it's been a few places, and it's been good.
Well, I wanted to talk a couple of different things, but I did want to not leave the Salvation Army and the charitable efforts, because you're doing that out of your own money.
Yes.
You don't fundraise. This is the money that you have accumulated from all of your entrepreneurship efforts over the course of many years. So this is not, and when we started the segment, it was started with, as an individual, you are trying to make a difference. You are being recognized for your interfaith work, like with the Salvation Army. Is that something that you think ought to become more common, or is it more common and people in the Muslim community just don't put it out there as much as other people might? I mean, you said you didn't when you were in Pakistan, and it's really since you've come to the United States.
There are many aspects to all this. One of them is that, charity. Mm-hmm. In Arabic and Urdu, we say khairat, the sadaqah in the Jewish, charity, all the prophets that came from Noah to Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon all of them, Jesus, Moses. Charity is the central part. One of the things that Jesus said, I remember reading, because I was lucky that I took scripture in school. Mm-hmm. Reading my own religion, sure, absolutely, and practicing it, but I also read scripture. And I remember that beautiful saying, which I quote all the time, that when Jesus was asked, why did you say that to that rich man? Oh. And he said, well, it'll be easier for a camel to go through an eye of a needle than a rich man to reach the kingdom of heaven.
That's right.
And believe me, for me, I'm not very good at raising money. So whatever I have, whatever we make, we keep what we need, mm-hmm. and we give away what we don't need. And in fact, Khalil Gibran said it beautifully. He said, what you owe someday will be given away. So let the season of giving begin, and let the joy be yours and not your inheritors.
Ah.
And so and somebody gave me a book a long time ago, which I didn't read it, but I loved the top of it, and said, giving while you're living. And that's what I'm doing.
That's what you're doing.
When I come to what the question you asked on Salvation Army, when I was in Italy, I was a young man, 17 and a half, 18, or younger. I got pneumonia, and I woke up in a hospital. I didn't know where I was. I'd passed out because I'd had asthma. It was winter, first winter out of a boy out of Karachi. And, it's a warm place. And the first thing, when I opened my eyes and I looked up and I saw two beautiful angelic faces looking down on me and the cross on my chest. And I thought, oh my God, I'm dead, but I think I'm in the wrong lane. So I shut my eyes. So I shut my eyes and thought, okay, maybe I'll move on to the right. Anyway, I opened my eyes, and there I was. These beautiful angelic faces were looking down at me, and they actually helped me get better. And, I got to know them. I stayed there for 2 months. They really took care of me, and I'd go to the church with them, light a candle, mm-hmm. and so every day when I would walk past the Salvation Army, I would say, how do I do it? I want to really call them up and tell them. And there, after a while, we went to a fundraising for then President Obama in Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. And, it was great meeting him. He's a he was a wonderful president. And I was sitting there. It was a beautiful, balmy evening. I was enjoying the, lovely. He had gone after giving a speech, and there came a lady and said, "Can I take this chair and sit down?" I said, "Of course." And she had an army kind of a uniform. So I said, "Are you with the Marines or?" And she said, "No, I'm from the Salvation Army." Ooh. I said, "My God, I didn't come to meet President Obama. He was Senator Obama then. I came to meet you." Excellent. And 2 days after that, bang, there was a call from Salvation Army, and we started on Christmas Day.
That is excellent.
So
a great story.
That was the story.
That's a great story. Well, I do want to note that you and I are going to be talking again later. We've talked about visiting hospice. You've expressed an interest.
Yes.
Visiting Veterans Hospital, so we are going to be doing that. I want to thank you for coming tonight, Muslim, and sharing your story with us. Individuals can make a difference. Whether you go to a church, whether you're affiliated with a mosque, it doesn't make a difference. As Muslims said, giving while we're living.